It's federal funds for assistive technology. We have a large demonstration center in Salem. That's where we're based out of, but we cover the whole state of Oregon. Our grant requires us to assist all Oregonians. So we travel the state of Oregon all year round, regardless of the weather. And we do demonstrations of equipment. That grant also allows us to have, with our demonstration center, a lending library. So for super low cost, individuals can borrow the equipment to help them determine if that is going to meet their needs. And then we can assist them with finding the source to purchase. We do not do financing. A few states are allowed to have their own financing program, but we do layaway, we do long-term loans, and we even do a rent-to-own on things that maybe it's technology. They've come out with a new model or something, so we can't sell you that exact same one. We can do a rent-to-own on a contract with that as well. So we've had a few. I have an individual who is blind, and I had an Intel reader, and he didn't want to go into using a computer and scanning his bills in to have the computer read it to him. So an Intel reader he takes a picture, it's in a stand. They don't sell it anymore. It's about a $1,300 item. We're selling it to him for about $500. He's just making monthly payments on it. So that's one grant that we facilitate for the state. We also facilitate the FCC's I Can Connect program. The I Can Connect program helps individuals with a dual sensory loss, so they have to be both hearing impaired and visually impaired. And there's an application process. They apply. They have to be, it's really kind of crazy, 4 times the income limit. The poverty limit is your income limit that you have to be under, so $42,000 give or take for a single individual. Then the FCC pays for us to come out and do an assessment and look at pieces of technology to help them with their telecommunication needs. So telephones, computers, computer software, iPhones, cell phones, and even iPads and different devices. Anything that has to do with making telephone calls, email, Skype. I help people get televisions to see a video relay if they were hearing impaired and needed sign language to communicate. And that program is really kind of a bread and butter for getting us to all over the state of Oregon because the FCC pays for everything, pays for our time, our travel, pays for the equipment, and pays for us to do continued education. I have individuals in that program from age 17 to 101. So I have a 101-year-old gal, and we support her with that program by just having a house phone in her nursing home that she lives in, and she can independently make phone calls.
Can you tell us who would be eligible? I know you said 2 sensory.
So you have to have a dual hearing loss, and basically the application process is you print them off our website, and we're able to give them to you. But you fill out your information. Age is not a problem. And then you tell us what your telecommunication goals are. And then on the back side of the application, someone has to attest to your hearing or vision loss. So that can be a member of the community, medical community. So you guys could say, I know this person can't see, and yes, we need optimum amplification with hearing loss.
Okay.
What people think of when they think of someone as deaf-blind is they think of Helen Keller, and those are the standards. You have to have 2,200 in one eye for vision, makes you legally blind, and then you just have to be able to not hear without amplification. That can be just having someone have to shout to be heard. In that regard. And then someone in the community has to sign that application. It can also be a physician, your eye care physician, your audiologist, or someone such as yourself.
Okay.
Then we review the application. We also do, by law, they require us to have the income proven. So a social security statement, year-end to prove that you're under that income limit. It's a fairly easy process.
Great.
With that program, we do a lot of work with phones. So I did only bring one phone here. But another program that I am involved with as well is TDAP. So anyone who's ever had a house phone, there's a little TDAP charge on your bill, right? If you've ever seen that. That TDAP charge on the bill actually funds the Telecommunications Device Assistance Program. And that gives people with no income requirement access to free telephones. And they've just started adding iPads to that. I have applications for that in my office. I am soon going to be an advisory council member for the TDAP board. So that will have a lot of information on as well. But they basically do the long-term loan, and they really just handle telephones, and now they're starting to work with iPads for that. So today I brought, and that's kind of all of our grant stuff. We also do fee for service. So we do private pay trainings. We contract with different agencies to do ergonomic risk assessments. We do just basic assistive technology assessments. I've seen a lot of work with people with developmental disabilities, working with book rehab to get into the employment field. And so we come in and they contract with us to see what can we do to help these individuals get honest, good paying jobs versus working in a shelter work environment where they're getting paid 10 cents to put a victim back. So we do a lot of work in that regard, helping people become employed, keep their employment, and overcome their disabilities to do so. So today I brought just a few different pieces of equipment, and I'll definitely pass them around. You guys can take a look at them and ask questions as we go along. But the first thing I brought here is a captioning telephone. So this is made by Captel. It has a very nice large screen. It's also an amplified phone, and it has larger buttons. So this does require an internet connection. This is something that can be gotten through that TDAP program, and we also can work it through our FCC program. But basically what it does is it captions.
You said TDAP.
TDAP. T-D-A-P.
Thanks.
What does it stand for again?
Telecommunications Device Assistance Program. And so what this phone basically does is it captions everything that the other person is saying on here. And it's got a nice large display so that you can actually see it. So you pick up the phone and you can listen, or you can even just put it on speaker. But then what the other person is saying comes up on the nice large display screen. So there is actually a little bit of a delay. A person doesn't say, it's helpful to say I'm using a captioning service, so that way someone can pause before they say something else, because they have to know that someone's reading what they're saying.
Is this like closed captioning on the internet, on television?
It is, exactly, but it's the other person's side of the conversation. There's another phone, I didn't bring, someone's borrowing it. It's called the Caption Call phone. And that phone is unique from this. It does the same thing. However, you can save the conversations. So if you had someone, maybe a doctor call and gave some information, and the caretaker or the family member needed to know what the doctor said, they could actually go back and see that.
Is it available in different languages than English?
Only English for now. But with the Caption Call phone, they're free. Typically one is free. And they will actually come out and set it up. And if you have your audiogram from the audiologist, you can plug your audiogram into that phone, and it will actually match your pitch and the calls of your hearing. And that's called Caption Call. And they're a wonderful company and wonderful to work with, and it doesn't cost anything for them to come out and set it up. They set up every single phone in the community. So, you guys would like to look at that, right? We also, we understand there's a need for a hearing. When individuals lose their hearing or have difficulties with their hearing, it makes life very hard for folks. So I brought just a few different types of what are called assisted listening devices. This is a pocket talker. Pretty basic. You don't need a hearing aid. You put this little earbud here, flip it on, and this external mic picks up your sound and feeds it straight to this. It can also be plugged in with a neck loop. So a neck loop basically will go around your neck, and it helps feed the sound to the hearing aids. Or you can just use it independently. So for an individual who is just newly experiencing hearing loss, or just facing their hearing loss, and they haven't gone to an audiologist, or maybe they just aren't going to do that. We were just talking about someone who just needed hearing aids, needed to have their hearing checked, but didn't. This is a nice something that you can take. I had a grandfather who turned the hearing aid off every time he
What's a basic retail price on that?
Pocket talkers, I think, run about $100. So a nice, a little more inexpensive route to go. Again, through our lending library, someone could borrow this item for $9 for 2 weeks and see if it would work for them before you even spend that. Going up the line a little bit more, I have a digital FM system. So it's a sender-receiver type of system, and these actually have multiple receivers. So how this would work is that the speaker would wear the lapel mic like this, and then the person with the hearing loss would have the receiver. And again, works with an earbud, or it can work with a neck loop if someone has hearing aids where it will feed the sound direct to the hearing aids. Is it working?
I noticed, this is the thing, I have high-end hearing loss, but I can hear pretty well. But I know there's a frequency tone over there where you can increase the high end or low end, so I can do
Yes.
a certain compensation.
Exactly. So that's the other thing about hearing loss is that sometimes, like my mother-in-law lives with me, lost her hearing aid. She can hear me perfectly fine. I don't have to shout because her high frequency she still has. My husband, on the other hand, he has to shout or change his pitch for her to hear him because she just can't hear the lowness of his voice. So yes, you definitely want to, when we're talking about helping someone with assisted listening devices, we do need to know where their frequencies are. Can you hear the high pitches? Can you hear the low pitches? And then we would dial that in with, like you were saying, Will, the little change. That one's pretty simple, just a little wheel. Some of them get a little bit more advanced, but we've got all the different ranges here that you can change. So this is an example of a digital FM system. Kind of strange. I also brought, this is one of my favorite little assisted listening devices. So this is called the Converser Pro. It comes in 2 pieces. So the first piece is the neck loop. So it can be worn right around the neck. If you don't have hearing aids, you can plug earbuds into the bottom. And then this is the wand. So this itself works alone. It works all by itself. There's a little mic here. You've got volume up and down buttons. But if you're in a different type of a setting, where say you're here and Will wanted to hear, what Morgan wanted to say. Will could have this on and he could point this wand to the person that he wanted to hear, and it would feed that sound straight through the directional mic. And then you can also set it on a table, and it has an array mic that picks up everything around you. So this one would only work if you have your hearing aids on right now.
And if you are in a group of people, would it just pick up everything?
Yep, so it's got the directional mic, and then it has an array mic, and you basically can just turn them on and off, so which one do you want, if you want.
Would that be in addition to the hearing aid?
You can use this with or without hearing aids, but yes, this would be in addition to your hearing aids.
So if you have hearing aid, would you need this because when you have hearing aid and you're in a situation like that, it's harder to hear?
Well, Helen, do you have anything that you would like to add as someone who, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it's kind of hard. I don't know if you have anything you want to add with.
Well, but I've had trouble hearing after this.
Right. So Helen wears hearing aids, and she still experiences difficulties with hearing because they're just not tuned in to where her hearing needs to be, and the modes of her hearing aids aren't working. So this is something that can just assist with that. So this neck loop basically feeds the sound straight into the hearing aid instead of someone having to get closer, even though she has hearing aids, to talk louder for her.
Sometimes people don't need to talk louder. When you're hearing, my hearing's like this, and then it cascades down to nothing. So I have profound hearing loss. And I'll tell you, when you have that, you don't want to test the dog fence, the invisible fence. It's the only way I can test it. Other people walk through and say, oh, wait. And I have to go through it by holding it on my and I'm getting shocked. I always got the neighbor kid to walk through. But it's hard. With a lot of these things, it's hard to find the right spot because you got to deal with that. You fix this. noise is, coming in at you about 15 times and you power. But finding it, tuning it to that cascade is really very difficult. So I'm intrigued by some of these things, but I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. So, same line of things with assisted listening devices. This one is called the Quattro 4, and it's a Bluetooth enabled. So their hearing aids have Bluetooth compatibility these days. Not all of them. They're a little bit more expensive when you go Bluetooth. But this loop will actually connect Bluetooth devices to your hearing aids as well as send the sound to your hearing aids via the neck loop. So for instance, I have an individual who uses this with his phone for phone calls. So he just basically hears the sound right into his hearing aid instead of having to hold the phone up to his ear. But he also feeds internet radio to his hearing aids from his phone.
What is it called?
The Quattro 4. And what's also unique, similar to having the external mic on the Converser Pro, is there's a little detachable mic. So you can have this on, you can plug earbuds into this if you don't have hearing aids, and then say you're sitting around this table and you can pass the mic around and you can hear just the direction if you have the mic versus just hearing everything around you. And it's just a magnet. Looks like that.
Is any one of these devices good for if you're in a busy Starbucks, there's that background in and making noise and
Really
and you're
depends.
like, what?
So here's the trick with hearing. Any of these might work for someone. It depends on the individual. Hearing is different for everyone. So where you hear your pits and falls, one thing might work for one person, but it might not work for another person, even if their hearing is very similar. So it really depends. Every person's unique, everyone's hearing loss is different. So when it comes to that, that's where our demonstrations come in. So Ellen and I were talking about scheduling a time for me to come in and I can bring every piece of assisted listening device that I have to her and we could try to simulate some environmental stuff and see what might work better for her. And we do that, by the way, at no charge. We do have to be in the area. So I'm in Portland 232.
Can all of these devices be rented on a temporary basis?
Yes, there's only a few things that we have that cannot be borrowed, but all of our assisted listening devices can be borrowed. So that 2-week period, we figured that 2 weeks is a good time for someone to borrow something and see if it works. We only charge the $9 fee, which is a cleaning fee. If someone wanted to borrow something for a little bit longer, then there's a $20 monthly rental fee plus a one-time $9 fee. And we've just found that if you keep something for longer than 2 weeks, it takes us longer to clean it. So that's why we charge for that. So we do more than just hearing and access technologies, and we know that there's more struggles that people will experience as they age. So I brought my fun little talking. It's got a nice big. Okay. I will. So she talks to you. I don't mind having blood pressure.
What's it doing?
Taking my blood pressure.
You're not nervous talking in front of the group at all, are you?
I have very low. It has multiple user modes, so you can actually, it's got 2 users, so you can actually use it for one.
Sorry, no one at this end of the table knows what you just did, so maybe you could just.
Oh, okay. So this is a talking blood pressure cuff. Feel free, you can put it on and try it out. But it talks to you, so it tells you what to do, tells you what your blood pressure is, if it's normal or not normal. And if it's high, it will tell you to go to the doctor. And it has a nice large display.
Depending on your arm, you might be able to hear it.
Yeah, you can hear it when
It's
it's.
got a huge fan back
Yeah.
here, and so a lot of what you're saying.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Off to the back of the room.
Yep. So we also don't think about things like limited hand dexterity, turning on the faucets. So I have an automatic faucet little guy. You just screw it on and set your temperature, and then you just put your hand underneath it. Instead of replacing your entire faucet with an expensive faucet, you can just set the temperature and let it go. And it's pretty standard, fits on most sinks. And it comes with different adapters and things as well. We also have one that does soap, liquid soap. So it just sits next to the sink and automatically does liquid soap. This little guy is a door knocker. So it's a wireless. If somebody knocks on the door, it's got a transmitter and it will flash the light. So it's basically an alert that picks up the sound. So it does visual, so if someone's hard of hearing, they can see that someone's knocking the door. We also have those for the batteries might not be. I don't have the transmitter set up. But basically what happens is there's a little transmitter, you knock on the door, and then it sends a signal to that, which flashes the light. There we go.
You have it for bed,
For
a bed,
bed?
Doorbell.
Bell, yes.
Doorbell.
Yes, so we have wireless doorbell, so you actually press the button and it flashes the light. I have a clock that will do motion, it'll do a doorbell, it'll do a telephone, I've set it up for someone who's hearing impaired so they can hear their baby cry. I've had one set up where the person had a broken door and they couldn't secure their home from one door. So we set one up so it has a motion sensor and will flash. So if anything comes into that back door at night, it'll flash in your room, a flashing light. All sorts of fun things for safety as well. Another thing that we specialize in, and I do have some handout on some vision stuff here, so feel free to take them. But we do a lot of work with folks who have low vision as well, especially with that FCC program that I facilitate. And I wanted to show, so we have all sorts of different magnification devices, but I wanted to talk about contrast lenses. So contrast lenses change the amount of blue that comes into the light that you can see. So individuals who have cataracts tend to find the orange glasses actually block the blue but bring in more of the light that they need to be able to see. And then individuals who have macular degeneration, the yellow tend to do the same for them. So these are designed as fit overs. They can fit over your glasses. Yellow, I think of ski. You're talking about skiing. So ski goggles being this color. It's not on accident. It is to cut the glare down. I wear yellow polarized ones when I'm driving in really bad fog, and it will cut the spray from the road, from other, from the water, from other cars, and cut the fog and make it look like you're driving out during the day. So,
And they fit over your glasses?
they fit over your glasses, and they come in a variety of sizes. And we actually sell these. We don't sell a whole lot of things in our store, but we sell durable medical equipment, but we do sell the glasses.
and how much are they?
46, I think. They're in here. Interesting, it changes things.
Yes.
So another thing that they do is it helps bring things out. So individuals who have those types of vision concerns, they miss things like the curb, right? So if it's you can't see the difference between the curb and the parking lot, but these will make that edge stand out as well. It's pretty tedious. There's 4 tiny screws to put the battery in this, so I don't have my battery in it. But this is what's called a watchminder. So it's a digital display. If an individual needs to have certain things, alarms or alerts to notify them, this can set up to, I think, 6 different alerts. And you can do very simple commands like, 10 o'clock bedtime, little things, and it'll put that on the display so it just alerts you with a vibration or a sound. And you can program the watch to actually tell you what to do. I'm not 100% certain on the price of that. Probably about 200. And then I brought some of my favorite things. Adaptive heating utensils. These are something we cannot loan, but we can help you find the best pricing and the best place for them. And we don't loan them because we don't have a dishwasher to sanitize. So I brought a variety. Individuals who have, say, had a stroke and lost their use of their right arm, but they're right hand dominant. I have a left-handed spoon. My father-in-law had surgery on his right shoulder and was complaining about not being able to eat. I ordered him a package, and he's able to eat independently without complaining. We've also found if you put it in your right hand, you can't do it, but they make right-handed ones too. They have found that individuals who experience hand tremors, that the weight helps counteract that tremor and can help be able to stay independent with eating. You can feel that, it's definitely different. And we also have this little gripper that you can just slide a utensil into to help with grip strength. And it's a little weighted as well. These guys are swivels, so individuals who have Parkinson's and experience incredible amounts of tremors, it shakes with you, so the food stays on the utensil.
Seems like it would make it worse.
No, because if you're shaking and it shakes, it's kind of hard to do if you don't actually have the tremor. This is a knife. It's just, if you can't do the sawing motion of a knife, you can roll this knife. And this one I usually pick on people with. It's a pretty cool looking fork, right? You win. I've only ever had 2 people ever say. So it actually cuts. So it can cut soft foods. French toast is probably one of my favorite answers someone has said. It's not very sharp, but then it's bent here as a guard so that you can't actually hit the little blade here. This is pretty dull because I do this a lot. But I usually have this out when I'm at a big conference and people always say, what is it? What does it do? I'll figure it out. And you'll have engineers trying to figure out how to do this. One of my favorites. Yeah. And then I brought my iPad. Yes. iPads are great devices. They really, really are. Right now I have the accessibility feature of VoiceOver on. So you have to do things a little different. But VoiceOver actually allows someone who's completely visually impaired to operate this device without sight. So it's a little loud in here. I've got her all the way up.
Page 2 of 5.
But if you notice, I have a ton of apps on here. And if I couldn't see the screen, I would turn on VoiceOver. And then as I run my finger around the applications, it tells me what is under my finger.
13 apps. Double tap to open. Dropbox. Music folder. 14 apps.
Then I can double tap to open.
Xylophone. Gourmet. Music house app.
And it tells me what I'm on. And then you have just different ways that you have it. So that's one of the things that we like about iPads and iDevices is they are very accessible.
Double tap to open.
Is that just an app that allows you to do the voiceover?
It's built in. It's built in. So all iPhones, iPads, iPods, Apple computers all have VoiceOver. And you can even use a keyboard with the iPad, a Bluetooth keyboard. Then you can actually go through the keyboard with the keyboard shortcuts and navigate.
I have an iPad. How do I access that? I didn't know I had it.
Yeah. So what you would do is you would go into settings,
Yes.
and in the general settings, which is the main settings, you go down to accessibility. Accessibility. And then it's the first one, voiceover. So, and it has all the different things. You can speed it up, you can slow it down, you can do all sorts of crazy things with it. I have set up for people who are visually impaired as well, Braille keyboards. So it'll actually output what's on the screen and they can read it and then they can input in to the iPad in Braille. So I do a lot of that work. I'm not very good with Braille, I'm learning. My joke is that I can read Braille by sight.
Separate special Braille keyboard?
Yeah, separate special Braille keyboards. So they have Braille keyboards in a variety of sizes. I have a 12 cell, which just does 12 letters at a time, and I work with 80 cells. Yeah. So that would be the accessibility features. That's also where you will find, and I turned it off for a moment, the special zoom feature, which is newer, how they've enhanced it. So with the zoom, you can magnify the entire screen. Then you do have to navigate it a little bit different. So you have to move with 3 fingers. You can't just do it with one. One doesn't do it. So also see, he's trying to look and see if his tablet does it.
This is a $50 special from Fred Meyer.
Aha!
It doesn't do quite that, but
No.
it does have voice recognition.
It does have voice recognition. That's good. Siri is great as well, and they've made some recent enhancements that she does a little bit more. Has to compete because Microsoft is coming out with more, and Android is coming out with better voice recognition. They've really kind of changed some of the things. You know, on my Android phone, I can tell my phone to put in a calendar appointment, and they still won't let Siri do that. I can voice dictate and just tell my phone, you know, add this to this date at this time, and Siri still doesn't do calendar appointments, but they are changing how much she operates. But voice recognition is great too. That's on iPhones I've had help people where they don't even have to press the button to access Siri, where you can just say, "Hey Siri," and tell her what you want, and you don't have to press any buttons. So iPads are really great devices. We also do a lot of work, so if you'll notice, I'm really loaded. I've got apps within apps within apps. But one of the things that we've seen work with individuals who, I've got a few folks who've had strokes and they can't get, they know what they want to say, but they can't get that word out. This is an app for speech generating, and it basically does everything for you based off pictures. And you can do more than just these stick figures. You can actually put your own pictures in and go through, see if I can find something.
I need a drink. Coffee. I need coffee.
I need coffee.
And you can change, it's got a variety of voices. So they've got, older voices, younger voices, different accents from all over the place.
That is really cool because I do a thing with Computer Lab for people who don't speak English and are not familiar with mice and stuff like that. It's incredibly complex to use those things. This is like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to mention older people with Parkinson's and whatever. It's really
Right. Cool.
Yep. Yep. So we even do, I have an individual who has cerebral palsy. He's in a power wheelchair. He uses switches already. He actually has head array switches in his wheelchair, so he navigates his wheelchair. He navigates at his work. He works at Howell's Books. He runs the conveyor belt and actually runs it with switches built into his wheelchair. And then he also has that app on an iPad mounted to his wheelchair, and he uses the other side of his headrest to navigate that application and speak. And actually, His mom helped him come up with, he had to have his annual review. He's worked there for about 10 years. He had to have his annual review, and she helped him write an entire speech of what he wanted to say and put it in one button. But then he was able to pause it when they said, he was like, I have all this technology now. I feel like I can take on more hours of work. And then he'd pause it with his headrest, and they'd say, okay, how many hours do you want to work? Well, I'd like to work maybe 1 extra day, so 5 more hours a week.
Wow.
Great. His next, then he would make it go again and say, you know, I feel like I can take on more responsibilities as well. Can we look at me getting more job tasks? And this is someone who's completely dependent on a wheelchair. Usually everyone else had to speak for him. And one of the misconceptions with cerebral palsy is if somebody, or any disease where someone can't speak, is that people tend to think that they don't have a thought to say. And that's not the case. So that application allows individuals to actually have a voice. Express their wants and needs and become independent and be able to do things that normally, you know, you just have a job coach who's with you every single day and they help you do your job. But in this case, it helps an individual actually be able to discuss that.
Is this built, that's going to be built in?
That's not built in. That's about a $250 amount. So again, something where our lending library is really helpful because that's, an iPad is not inexpensive and that app is not inexpensive either. So it becomes really frustrating for individuals when, you know, especially for a family who, you know, if you're talking about someone who's older, they can't, you're missing that person that used to be there, that used to be able to communicate with you.
Can apps like that be prescribed by a doctor and covered by medical insurance?
So that's a good question. We do not do any medical billing currently. We've been working on it. The state of Oregon has what's called the K-Plan, and it's for individuals with varying types of disabilities, mostly developmental disabilities, and the K-Plan itself will cover the iPad and the application. I have done reports, I've done assessments and done reports that then doctors have read and then turned around and said, okay, and however the magic of that K-Plan and our health system works, they get the money and they purchase the equipment. What they haven't figured out is how to get that plan to cover our training, because they'll only cover about probably a 1/10 of what our fees are. So we haven't been able to figure out a way to work with it, because that's the other thing with that application. I've met individuals who've had that app for years and it's never been touched. It's never been customized for them, so they don't know how to use it. So if someone isn't trained to know how to use it, and we're certified through the company that created the app to train people, so we go through a rigorous training process for that. So if someone doesn't know how to use it, they're not going to use it, and it'll get frustrating. I've seen it work wonders for people. I've also seen a young child absolutely, with, I think he had autism, I didn't get into the details, but he absolutely freaked out in a tantrum just seeing that app, not even hearing it or pressing any buttons. So sometimes the app works for someone, sometimes it doesn't, depending on the person and depending on their disabilities. One of my greatest stories about that app was I was a pretty new employee, and we were going to do a demonstration at a assisted living facility. And actually, I think they had a kind of a skilled area, and this man had a stroke. He was living in another state. His sister went out to go visit him and was told basically that he was brain dead and had no functioning capabilities to speak, would never come up with a thought on his own, and he was just done for. And he's a pretty big guy, and it was a little intimidating, and all he would do was yell, and so he had been kicked out of facilities. Well, she had bought him a TV. They're taking the box out, and he was yelling and yelling and yelling. And she didn't know why he was yelling, and so they handed him the box. He took out the remote, put the batteries in, and programmed that TV for himself. Oh, sure, he's brain dead. He's got no thoughts of it. But they can't. So she moved him to Oregon, and he got kicked out of 2 or 3 different facilities. And the guy who was running the facility used to work for us years ago. And he was the social services director. So he called and said, hey, could you just try some stuff? So before we met him, the sister said, he uses a laptop. He just goofs around until he finds what he wants to watch on Netflix. He's not going to like this. He won't be able to use it. So let's just try it and see. So he pulled it up and he started and he actually was making complete thoughts and making sentences. And that was just a demonstration. 2 weeks later, the sister called us and said, okay, I have the iPad, I downloaded that app. Can you come and show us how to use it? So we came in and they paid us privately. We went in and it all started from the demonstration, just one person's thought that we might have something. And by the end of our first training session, he was flirting with the nurses and asking me for a kiss. One of my greatest stories. So its age is completely irrelevant when it comes to someone having a communication need.
What's the name of that app?
Prolo Quo to go. So PRO.
What do you want to do?
Yeah, and it's got an owl. The little app is an owl. PROLO. How far did you get?
Rolo to go?
Quo. QUO.
To go.
Is that an iPad?
Yes.
Okay, because it's only available on iPad, so on Android tablets that aren't Apple ones, it's not available. Did you find it?
I think I got it as well.
I got it.
Rolo
What do you want to do?
Pro, lo, quo.
To go.
Yeah, they don't make it easy, I don't know why.
When?
Prolo, and then,
How are you? What?
QUO. And then two, just the number two.
Yeah.
Yep. They also make one that's pro-local for text, and that one's. The other version of that app is for someone who doesn't need the pictures. So if someone doesn't have that deficiency, they can actually just type and save messages and save history and save common things that they would say all of the time. So it's Prolo for text. Essentially does the exact same thing, completely customizable, no pictures.
You may not have an answer to this, but would it work if, is there something that Microsoft has that will bring it through a PC? It sounds like an extraordinary couple of things for people to instruct.
So there's different types of software that can do that, but this app in particular is locked down to Apple and only on the
But is there something else? How would we search it?
Boy, for a PC. Board Maker might be something that you could use. Board Maker.
B-O-A-R-D,
Maker.
all one word?
Yep. Yep. So Board Maker is basically they have pictures and you can press them and they speak for you. And a lot of individuals who have disabilities at a younger age, they will use those pictures and print them off to make choice boards, so that individuals who can't express what they want or what they need can actually just use
How
those
are
pictures,
you?
or they'll use them for picture
He did
schedulers.
not know
So
anything
Board
at all
Maker
over
would probably be the
ideas.
first place that I would check. Yep. Any other questions? My table's empty.
Is there an app for like Spanish speaking people inside?
That same one, yep, has a Spanish version, and that's new within the last 6 months. It will do Spanish as well in the latest version. Yep. Yes.
The most useful device.
He did
for
not
me,
know anything at all over an idea.
When my husband was declining, was a device that went underneath the mattress and told me when he was getting to bed.
Yes.
Do you have that device available?
I do have them in a couple of different forms, yes. So so what she's asking is an alert that will let you know when someone's come off, or we can always look into finding them from our sources. The nice thing about our company is our president has been with the company since the inception, and she has all these great relationships with our vendors, so we can usually get a much lower price than someone can get if they booked on their own.
They're very expensive.
They are.
I know that at least a few years ago, Intel was doing a big, whole separate project around smart homes for things like, was he in and out of the bed, and he taken the beds, and so on and so forth. Do you collaborate with things, people like Intel?
We can, but we currently don't. We try as much as we can. Like when Google Glass came out, I applied for the grant to become a Glass Explorer to see how we could use glass to help people with disabilities. But it's all dependent on, them accepting us.
Does Verizon have some
When?
kind of
How are you?
system to help people
He did
with
not know anything at all.
disability?
Verizon? I'm not sure. I think every cell phone company still has at least one old-fashioned flip phone with big buttons and louder volume these days. But as far as anything in particular, you'd probably have to.
Because I got a case now, it said Jetpack. And I had no clue. I Googled it and all, and I couldn't find anything called Jetpack.
I know when,
Jetpack is a wireless device.
yeah,
And what does that have to do with
yeah.
hearing aid?
To my knowledge, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Jetpack is, oh, it does?
No, I don't think it does. When I talked to her again after, just lately, and she said it might be resolved, and she's still gonna try to call you, she mentioned more that it was a wireless hotspot.
Yeah.
So I didn't know where the hearing device came from, so it's still a mystery.
Because I was Googling it all over, and that's why I came to the airport. Maybe I'll get the answer to that one.
Yeah, if it's a mobile hotspot, then that's just something that gives you an internet connection that
Yeah.
you can take with you. It
That's
has
what I
nothing to do
thought.
with
I
hearing.
couldn't figure out what it had to do with hearing aid, so I thought maybe there was something I was missing.
Unless she does use it to get use the Wi-Fi to get one of these apps.
Right, or if you needed it,
I don't know.
I don't know how it would have anything to do with hearing loss unless you were using it to, be able to have internet connection.
So I was researching it all over the internet. I don't see anything.
No, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't
No.
think. Yeah.
Still a mystery.
Interesting.
So you talked to her, yeah.
Yes.
Another useful device is a camera that hooks up to your phone when you're away so that you can monitor an individual.
Yes.
Either the family monitors somebody they're worried about, or,
Yep.
or the wife monitors the husband.
Yep. And I know
Can you get help with that kind of device?
We don't have those, and I think it's probably, I would imagine, due to privacy issues and things like that, just not something camera-wise, we don't carry them. I know we don't have any online, but that's something where if someone called and said, how would I go about getting this? I could do research and find out what the best option would be. But nowadays, I think Comcast has a service where they can monitor, you can monitor.
It's available for kids, after school kids.
Yeah.
and the like.
Yeah, but we could definitely help find what would be the best resource for that.
Could you please pass some of the catalogs on?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So this first one is my vision handout, just has a lot of different vision things on it. And the second one is my newsletter. We do put it out quarterly, and our information is on the back as far as our website. And then the inside of it is actually our marketplace, which is another cool resource that we have. So we do sell durable medical equipment, wheelchairs, ramps, walkers, rollators, bath mats, all sorts of things. We also, I don't think I brought this up at the beginning, we have used equipment that will come into us. Never bath or hygiene products. By federal law, we can't resell. So even if we sell someone a bath bench, we have to tell them it cannot be returned under any circumstances. Once it leaves that door, you can't take it back by federal law. But those are available for loan too, our wheelchairs. So if somebody's having a temporary need for a wheelchair
So
or a
good.
ramp
Wow.
or a walker, you can borrow instead of purchasing. But we have, people can sell things on our website. So if you didn't want to donate it, which that's, people will donate used medical equipment into us, or used technology even. And we have a person a volunteer who makes sure everything works on it. And we sell things for a discounted price. But if you say, your alert that was expensive for your husband when he was in bed, that was expensive. If you didn't want to just donate it for me to be able to resell, you could actually list it at no cost on my website. Then if somebody called me and said, hey, do you have this alert system? I don't, but let me check my website. This person in Portland has one for sale for this much money. So we do have that kind of a marketplace. And I refer people a lot. So for instance, we're a nonprofit, we're pretty small. We don't have room for a hospital bed. So we can't, if you had a hospital bed and you wanted to donate to me, I would tell you to contact the Paralyzed Veterans of America or to see if maybe they could use one.